Hello, today is November 11th. The stock we want to talk about today is Peloton. Peloton has been on a tear really up until the end of October. Around October expiration is kind of when things fell apart, and then we had COVID news, COVID vaccine news come out earlier this week, and that just really dropped Peloton quite sharply. And you can see that this big gap down is primarily off that Pfizer news, and we're seeing the setup now that a lot of stay-at-home names like Zoom and Peloton are getting hit real hard, and some of the other names that are the more get out in public, like Disney and Carnival Cruise Lines, excuse me, are really starting to move higher. And so if we go over to this equity hub, we could type in 3,500 different stocks we can search. So we just typed in Peloton here, and you can see this is the chart setup. This is a distinctly different setup. This is what we would call sort of like a stuck in the mud type setup, for lack of a better term. Whereas it was previously a very distinctly bullish setup in names like this. And to give you an idea what a bullish name looks like, if we type in Carnival Cruise Lines, as we mentioned before, this we view as a very bullish setup. This call gamma, which is the blue line, extending lower, infers that there's more hedging that needs to be done as the stock goes up, which means that, look, the volatility is going to expand as the stock moves to the upside. People keep buying calls, in Carnival Cruise Lines, the setup is bullish and the stock is moving higher. So if you compare that to a name, we mentioned Zoom before. This Zoom setup is very bearish. You can see the size of the put gamma relative to call gamma is just much higher. So this name is being dominated by puts. Obviously, it's it's a stock that's been really crushed, and it's down around 380 at the moment, which is right in here. And it's just been hit very hard. So if you look at Peloton, you can see that the situation is a little bit different, and the stock is down, quite a bit, but it seems a little more even in terms of the call versus put gamma. And the stock right now, as you can see, is trading around 100, and 100 is where we pick up a whole bunch of levels. That's where a lot of gamma is positioned. We have this hedge wall. The hedge wall is an area where we pick up an inflection point in the way that dealers hedge the name. So it's support if it's below, and it's resistance if it's above. So 100 is a point, is a spot in the stock that makes a lot of sense. The other interesting thing is that a lot of the positions in Peloton are for next Friday's expiration. You can see there's a lot of gamma built up in this name, and so what we think should happen is that the name should have, this pin sort of play in the name. 100 should be a support area up until next week, and then next week, those positions all expire, and we'll see, how the setup changes. But we don't think the setup in this name with 100 being support changes really until that next Friday expiration. And if you look at how the name is positioned, you can see there was a huge spike in put volume. If you use this show hide history, you can see, the 5-day look back. And so, the top delta expiration tells you that there's a lot of in-the-money calls that don't expire until January. So that's a big, mark this day on your calendar, 115, as there's a lot of turning points for many stocks. And I say the turning points because in-the-money options expire, and that could lead to hedge unwinds. But focused more on the near term, you can see that there was a call buyers did come in for sure, but they were offset, no doubt, by some pickup in put positions as well. And so then, obviously, when you get bad news and a lot of people sell out of these stocks, it increases the volatility. And so the fact that it stopped around 100 isn't terribly surprising, given one, it's big round number, which people like, but also there's just a lot of options which should tie this name down likely to that strike. So we hope this analysis was helpful. It's very interesting divergence right now between value names and some of these stay-at-home tech names. Another one that we were looking at earlier is Disney, and you can see again just a very bullish setup here that's building in this name, and again the kind of get out in public type name. So hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, email us sg@spotgamma.com or @spotgamma on Twitter. Thanks.